The town of Plainville. Established in 1721 at the geographical center of Connecticut.
I changed my view. Okay, is
Oh,
everybody
there you
here?
go. Okay.
That's supposed to be here at this point? Looks like it. Okay, we're here to continue on our budget work sessions. Robert Lee has sent along some updated information. There's a couple of new slides that were sent out via email. And I think, Robert, you're going to put them up on the screen at some point. So shall we start with that and discuss that first and then move on from there?
Sure. Kevin, do you have the updated slides?
I do.
Could you put the first one up?
Sure, 1 second. Right, share. There we go. There you go.
Hold on.
I can make it a little bigger if need be. There we go.
All right. This is pretty much the same slide as yesterday, except that I added half a police officer to it. Half the salary of a police officer, which is $32,000. That increased the mill rate slightly to 0.29 mils or 0.84%. And it results in a net expenditure increase of $401,682. So that is what it would take to any combination of increased revenues or decrease expenditures with regards to that. Does anybody have any question about the first slide?
Nope.
Okay. The second slide, you don't mind putting that up, Kevin? Yep, that's the summary budget. Again, the total budget is $62,900,348. It's an increase of $1.12 million or 1.18%. And again, the net expenditure increase, because we have some revenue increases, is again 401,682, and it's a percentage of tax increase of 0.84%. For the average taxpayer, it's an increase of $40.59 for the average residential home, and for the average condo, it's an increase of $28.18 on the average.
Thanks, Robert. Does anybody have any questions about some of these changes that Robert presented tonight? Any comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just a quick question. What was the reason for adding the half of police officer back in?
I can answer that. Kathy had asked me if I would at least present something to the council so they could see what a half a police officer meant to the budget.
Budget. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, I did talk to Robert after our meeting last evening, asked him if he would include that. I have not, and without any other changes to any of the line items in the budget. So I wanted to see how that would drop to the bottom line and see what impact it would have. In recalling the other evening when we spoke about this position, most council members were in favor of the half a position, not necessarily were they in favor of my proposal to get there by reducing the town manager's reorganization plan in the HR area. So I believe that's what I recall from the other evening. If I'm incorrect, I would like to hear from others on that point.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair?
Yes,
Deborah Tompkins. So does this, I agree that we need the police officer in there, and if we can get him for a half a year, I think that would be great. But I want to know if that 400,000 savings that we're getting from the Board of Ed is included in what is on the screen right now?
No. No,
Is there a reason why you didn't include that, Robert?
because
It's
I
not a
wasn't asked-
savings.
that's a policy decision of the council. I mean, I did indicate that the 400,000 is there. But that's a decision that the council hasn't made yet.
Okay, so we don't have a slide showing what it would look like if the 400,000 was in there?
You'd be at zero. Essentially.
Okay, which is, I think that's something that we all want to aspire to, correct?
I don't know.
Is
You have
that,
to- you
I think
ask
we'd
your
have
fellow
to,
members.
okay,
I
Madam
believe
Chair,
some of us want to do that, but I can't say with certainty everybody is on that thought process.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Wazorko?
Yep, this is Christopher Wazorko. Certainly, I not only do I want to go to zero, I'd love to decrease the mill rate. However, I think categorizing, and I don't want to say it's savings. I don't think that's the right term to use. Savings traditionally is something that gets carried over from year to year. This is a one-time effect of the current environment we're in. I don't think that using that to get down to a zero is the right way to go here. And as we talk more, I'll get into more what I feel we should do with that $400,000 or whatever amount that ends up being. I think that money would be better spent going forward with the economy. Clearly, I think we all can agree that the next couple of years, the economy is probably going to get worse, not better. What I worry about is a similar situation we had a few years ago where the state decreased our revenue that they were passing along to us, and we had to pass a mid-year tax increase. I think that 400,000, and I would also do this on the town side, and I'm not going to use the term savings, but any money that's not spent this fiscal year because of the COVID-19 issue, I think should be put in some fund to help us offset what I think are going to be likely increases in what locally we're going to have to support in our budget, because I feel the state is not going to be able to commit or to follow through on what they committed to giving the towns after we get through this budget cycle.
I think that's a great idea, but I think that offset begins this year. So even if we don't use that 400,000 to prepay for or if the Board of Ed doesn't use it to prepay for transportation, that in some way should go to offset any increase so that we don't have an increase in the mill rate. I mean, even if
Yeah,
we put it
but-
into the fund balance and then take it out of the fund balance, or even if we split it up and take half of it and prepay half of it towards transportation and half of it to the fund balance and take it out so that we can get to at least a zero mill, because the offset that starts this year, people are hurting right now.
Yeah, but using the 400,000 this year, it's not a savings. It's a neutral move, because whatever we take out, the more we use this year, the more we're going to have to raise the budget next year, or the
If we
bigger
use
tax
it to
increase we're gonna have
prepay.
next year.
If we use it to prepay, that's true. But if we put it into fund balance and then take it out of fund balance, that would not be the case, correct?
I'm not.
If we're
sure
not
I'm
using it to
following
prepay,
you.
even though last year the Board of Ed realized funds of 130,000 to prepay things and it wasn't an issue. Why is that? Why is it different this year?
Well, the board prepays every year, I believe. I think they typically, any money they haven't used for that particular fiscal year, they try to get ahead the next year. What I'm
Okay, so
saying
but
is-
it was never a problem before. Why is it a problem now?
I'll be
Why
happy
is
to
it-
address, let me know when you want me to address any of these topics,
Yeah,
because
I'm
I
going
know
to
it's a
break in
lot.
right now. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to break in right now, Kathy Puglisi, and I'd like to have Superintendent LePage jump in and give us some information. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate it. So just to address a couple of the topics that have come up, regarding the $400,000, I was asked by Robert Lee to come up with my best estimate of some potential realized savings that could result from the school closure taking place effective March 16th until current and for the foreseeable future this year. I'm getting updates by the end of the week, hopefully more information on that. That's a very loose estimate about what may be realized savings. We have not renegotiated with the bus company at this time. A loose number was factored into that by Mr. Adlerstein as to what we might potentially recoup from the bus contract. Our staffing, the governor passed executive order 7R and requiring us to recall staff. So some of the staff that we had anticipated some savings on due to unemployment, we have to make everyone whole that who was laid off or building subs, things of that nature, our monitors. So there's been some reductions to that anticipated savings. And I just want to add that it's risky to count on that money because I did not budget for any budget impact of the closure on what it's going to look like when we re-enter school. There are many anticipated potential costs related to special education, providing compensatory education to special education families who aren't necessarily getting all the IEP services and supports that they're entitled to through the IEP. So we're working really well, and we have what I consider to be a model distance learning program compared to most out there. But there are going to be some pretty significant potential for costs related to the transition back to traditional school. In addition to the health department thinking there's going to be the potential for another outbreak of COVID-19 in late September, early October, which would require, again, potential for distance learning. And, just talking with Kevin Ross on, what we didn't have that we really need going forward for such a closure, there are technology costs as well. So I think it's risky. I want to help out and get to zero any way that we can. And if that's the goal of the town council, we'll do what we can to support that. But I'm just, promising money from this year that I'm not certain of at this time. Sam Adlerstein can add more detail most likely, but it's a concern. As far as in the past, to speak to Ms. Tompkins, Chairperson Tompkins' comments about prepaying in the past, there has been some prepaying in the past that's resulted of very conservative spending, budget freezes. It's happened just about every year I can remember. This is the first year we didn't do a budget freeze, and we're really looking to, come in where we need to by just budgeting conservatively and spending carefully. But it's always risky. So we've frozen budgets in past years, early in the year, as early as January, December, and then any savings that come from not spending that money have been used to help to pre-purchase some items. But last year, 25,000 of that was a one-time expense to pay for the architectural design of the secure entryway to the high school. There was some money prepaid on legal expenses of $40,000 as well. We had 3 contracts that were being negotiated. So that money was gone as of, I think, February. Stan could speak to that. So we're still using quite a bit of legal services due to the closure, renegotiating contracts, such as the bus contract, getting advice on things like that, personnel matters. And then finally, just prepayment on some fuel. I think that was 60,000. Sam, I don't know if you're on the line, but was that $60,000?
65,000.
65,000. So that was the 135, of which 25 was the one-time expense for the architectural design. And that has been a past practice. It's freezing the budget, then using some realized savings. I'm not saying that's something I want to continue. And if we get to a place where we don't have to continue that in order to reduce our budget, I'd like to avoid that. But I just think it's risky I don't want to say that this 400,000 or whatever we need to get to zero is a safe number. There's a whole lot of risks involved in that. And there's already a whole lot of risks involved in my budget I presented to the town council about a month ago. A lot of assumptions and risks that we're really hoping to come true, so we could come in with a very lean, conservative number that gets us what we need for the district. So I just want to be fully transparent on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that information. I guess
You're
what we're trying to do is decide, first of all, if we are all on board with getting to a zero mill increase. If we're not all into that realm of thought, then I think we need to know that right now, because that could change the way we're going to be doing some of these things. I certainly think that if there's a $400,000 number that we have to make up to get to there, I believe we should share that with the Board of Education, not necessarily rely on the Board of Education for all of it, but I would offer that the town side could share some of that in order to get to our goal. Any thoughts on that from any of the people on the council?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Rosemary.
Oh, okay. Kathy, first of all, I wanted to get back to your first question that you had asked about the police officer and the town manager human resources question. Yes, that was what I felt, that I certainly supported the addition of a police officer, but not at the expense of diminishing the capacity of the town manager's office. I think the town manager's office just coordinates, manages, communicates on so many of our projects, every crisis that we've had recently. And I think that would, to diminish that capacity, actually would affect the well-being and security of the town. On the next question about the zero increase, for me, that's not necessarily a goal in itself. However, I will say, I think we have to be as reasonable as possible in terms of what we are asking the taxpayers. But I'd rather not look at a number as a goal in itself. I think we have to look at providing a very effective level of operation for the town. I think, especially in difficult times, whether it's the supports that are needed at the school system, whether it's the services that we have at the town. I think that's very important during these times as well. Obviously, we cannot add a lot of money, and we certainly have already looked at quite a level of reduction here, but that's the way I feel.
Thank you, Rosemary. I appreciate your input. Does anybody else wish to participate on that?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Based on what I've heard so far and based on your comments just now, I'm a no on getting to a zero. I just don't see how we can reasonably do it. I think part of my issue is that in the past, we've tried to force a very low mill increase. And in looking at some of the numbers from the past, we've followed up very low mill increases with very significant tax increases. So if there is something that's out there that we're not seeing, that's new information, certainly I would consider it. But based on the information we've shared tonight, I just don't think zero is a reasonable number.
Anybody else wish to opine on getting to zero mills?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Jesse Nazzo. I've put a lot of thought into it, and I can certainly understand the desire from some council members to get to zero. My concern with it is we're setting ourselves up next year already at some type of 0.29 increase or whatever it may be. I mean, on top of whatever we might be looking at. My concern for next year is kind of what Councilman Wazorko alluded to earlier is I think next year we're primed for a reduction in revenues from the state. And I'd rather help try to offset that by taking a modest increase this year. I mean, I think a 0.29 mil increase, well, it is an increase. And I think it's reasonable to maintain services. And I think I'd rather put that in this year than have to pile that on top of whatever's going to come next year. And, we've been through recessions before, and we don't know if a recession is coming out of this. But if ever, I think next year is going to be a much more difficult year to budget for than this year is. I think the unknowns are even greater for next year with healthcare costs and things like that coming out of this crisis. So my thought is I'd rather try to come in somewhere around this 0.29 number this year to help offset a significant increase to next year.
Thank you. Just as an observation, and I'll ask Robert Lee or Rob Uden to weigh in on this. At this point in time, with all of our review on the budget, we haven't reduced any spending whatsoever, have we? We have been working with moving around monies from the Board of Ed. We've been talking about moving monies out of our fund balance, but it is my understanding we haven't reduced any services. I am not offering that we reduce services. We haven't reduced anything from either the Board of Ed or the town for their operating side. Is that accurate, Robert?
No, not quite. We did reduce $20,000 for snowplow contractors. We did reduce health insurance on the town side by $62,600. We did reduce health insurance increase on the Board of Ed side by $83,000. And we reduced, at least I proposed to reduce the contribution to capital projects by $100,000 from $800,000 to $700,000. So we have actually reduced the expenditure side. I mean, we made some increases. The half a police officer, the fire marshal, which was a, which was an error to coming out of the gate, and the 10 additional personal property audits. So from a net point of view, we've reduced the expenditure line item by $214,000, $214,045. And that's on that first sheet.
Stand corrected. Thank you. That's why you're here.
Well, and we increased revenues by 320. So overall, we brought the net cost down from 900 and some odd thousand to 401.
I'm interested in hearing from the rest of the council regarding our mill rate proposal.
Kathy, Dave Underwood here. I'm in favor of a zero increase. I still am in favor of it. I agree with the Democrats. We don't know what next year is all about, but the crisis is this year. You have a crisis going on where people are losing their jobs. We don't know how long you're going to be out of work for. And as much as the government's going to make them whole, that's a fallacy in my mind. They're not going to make them whole. So I'm in favor of trying to get this cut even more than 0.29.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else wish to offer their opinion?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ty.
Just to mirror what Councilman Underwood said, we have the unemployment rate is speaking for itself right now. It's still growing, and that is affecting people right now. It's not, it's something that is affecting them this year right now. Right now is we have people that are losing their jobs, and I think it's our duty to really create the smallest increases possible going into the next year of paying taxes for them at the local level. I think that if we could hear possibly from Sam a little bit more as to, with the new information that we've heard about what he thinks might be some realized savings for this year, I think that might help. But I am in favor of still going for that 0 mil increase.
Thank you. Sam, if you are on board, could you give us some more information that we may not have already had yet?
I think Superintendent LePage really laid it out pretty well. And it's a moving target, and there are a number of risks in the $400,000 that we put out there. There's really a wide range. Transportation continues to change. We have to recall staff that we initially didn't think we had to recall when we put out when we estimated $400,000. I think there's some risk in that number. When we've rolled it up and we went through object by object, it could be as low as $75,000. 400,000 was on the risky side.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome.
So here we are. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. We have 5 people that are, we have 5 people that would be able to support a 0 mil increase, and I have 2 definitive no's. So how can we work together to get this done? I believe we can do a couple of things if we're worried about the Board of Education and its level of risk in offering the $400,000. I would suggest then we split some of that risk back to the town. We can use We can use some additional monies out of our fund balance. We can decrease the contribution from fund balance to our capital plan. There's a number of ways we can get there. I just offer that out, that we could plan on less money from the Board of Education, and then the town side could do something on our side as well. And hopefully that'll mitigate some of the risk and the concern of both Sam and Steve LePage, and help us out through this crisis. Again, I understand we do not want to become reliant on using fund balance to balance budgets on an annual ongoing basis. However, these are extraordinary circumstances, and I am hoping that this is a wise use of those dollars that have been built up over the past, several years. So that's my proposal, is to split the risk between the town and the Board of Education while still maintaining an appropriate fund balance, just in case there's anything down the road that that we don't know about.
Right. I agree, Madam Chair. This is Deborah Tompkins. I just think that money is there for emergencies, and I think this is an emergency type situation right now with finances at this time. So I'm in complete agreement. I think it's imperative that we get to a 0 mil increase.
Would you support splitting that 50-50, for example, $200,000 from the town side and $200,000 from the Board of Education side? Is that something you could support?
Absolutely. I think that's a great compromise.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Cox.
I could support splitting the difference from both sides. That being said, I'm not sure how I would feel about us taking more funds out of fund balance. I think that I would rather we look at capital if we were going to go that direction. I don't think that taking any more out of fund balance would be a smart move at this time.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Justin Mazzo, I would just like to, in regards to fund balance, I understand it's there for a crisis or for emergencies, and I can not opposed to using some of fund balance. However, I'm not in favor of using fund balance to pay operating costs. Fund balance is one-time money. We should use it for one-time expenses, because if we use it to pay operating costs, we've already set that level for the following year. So I think if we're going to look at fund costs, fund balance, we should be looking at using it to pay for one-time expenses.
But what would your thought be on that?
I haven't dissected. Well, I mean, obviously, one-time expenses are going to be in the capital budget. I haven't gone to that as I haven't supported a 0 mil increase. So all I'm saying is, as we're mentioning fund balance, I would recommend we try, if we're going to go that way, I would rather see us use it on one-time costs. I'd have to go through the CIP and take a look at it, as those are one-time costs. I'm not prepared to give you a list right now. I was voicing my opinion on using fund balance, as in response to Mr. Cox talking about it, and just saying, I think if we're going to look at that, we should be looking at it as one-time money for one-time costs versus putting it into the operating budget.
Thank you. And I think we can maybe use some of all of those ideas in order to get to where we need to be, because we have not talked about the capital program at all yet. We haven't even looked at it or discussed it. We've gone through it peripherally, but we haven't really done anything in terms of adjusting our capital. So I would suggest that I certainly would agree, if you are confirmed to a one-time cost, using it as a reduction to get us to where we need to be, that's fine. We could also do that in conjunction with some other ideas as well.
Madam Chair, this is Rob Buden.
Rob,
may I speak for a minute, please?
please do.
Okay, thank you. I just want you to be aware that with the governor's mandate that we have to reduce for the taxpayers for a 90-day period, our cash flow is not going to be as normal for the next 90 days, beginning July 1st through September 30th, regardless of which way we go, whether it's a deferment or an interest rate reduction. I believe Robert mentioned last night that our escrowed mortgage taxpayers equate to about 70%, 65 to 70% of our tax payments. Those escrows may still come in, but that is still a reduction of 30% of our cash flow for those 3 months. So our cash flow is going to be hurting for 3 months regardless of what we do. And our expenditures are still going to be the same. That means our fund balance is going to take a significant hit during that 3-month period. So regardless of what we do with this budget, whether it's keep it at 0.29 or go to 0, our cash flow is going to be hurting, and it's going to have to be made up at some point in the future. If you follow what I'm saying, we're going to dip into fund balance more, even without the town council appropriating monies, because of simply our cash flow is not going to come in. It's going to be delayed. And then when it does come in, it's still going to be reduced.
So are you planning on a certain percentage of those delayed payments actually happening? Or this is kind of this is a first time event for all of us. So are you planning on a certain percentage of them not coming through?
Well, again, like Sam and Superintendent LePage mentioned, you know, this is a different environment. It's unknown. Everything changes every day. So while we're assuming the banks are going to pay the escrowed payments to the tune of, for us, 70% or so, we're still going to be down 30%. I don't know what's going to come in, what's not going to come in. And even if those folks who get the deferment approved, they still may not be able to pay after October 1st. And it's only going to further impact our cash flow going beyond that date.
Thank you. Okay. Next steps. I'm wondering if they're good to see you all again. What are the next steps that you are interested in taking? There's a variety of ideas out here regarding getting to a 0. Rob just spoke about some concern about our cash flow. I don't know if municipalities are going to be able to have any access to any federal stimulus programs that are coming through. Have you heard that municipalities are going to be able to take advantage of some of that yet?
What we've heard is that if we have any increased costs associated with the virus, that we may be able to get some 75% reimbursement from the federal government for the increased costs of, you know, as a result of the virus. So if we had to, you know, buy medicine or you know, or increase our health department budget, and possibly there's some things on the school side, but right now we don't have a lot of expenditure impact as a result of COVID on the town side. We have some, but not a lot.
Okay, so I'm not sure where to go with this next. If the council and Councilman Nazo said he would be more willing to look at a one-time reduction in some expenditures specifically related to capital, and you didn't have any developed thoughts about that, and we have not looked at our capital program yet. Is it the desire of the council to continue tonight and go through our capital, or would you prefer to do some thinking about that, to take some one-time reductions in capital, but after having a chance to review it and bring those ideas to the council?
Kathy, can I just say one thing about the capital?
Of course.
The capital reduction, as it would impact the mill rate, would be the 800,000 being reduced by a certain amount. It isn't necessarily reducing the projects themselves, necessarily. So it would be, do we want to reduce the capital from 800,000 to 400,000, and then decide what we want to fund with the 400,000 plus whatever you want to use from unassigned fund balance? And if that's, just try to put it in perspective. I mean, that certainly is an option.
No, exactly. And I understand that, because our capital right now, you've reduced it. You've reduced some capital contribution already, haven't you?
Yes, I went from 800,000 to 700,000. So in order to get 400,000, you'd have to bring it down to 300,000, in order to get to 0 if you used it strictly through the capital line.
Thank you. Is there anybody interested in relooking at our capital in that regard so that we can make those one-time adjustments rather than touching our fund balance or making further reductions to our expenditures that we already have looked at? Both for the board and the town, I will say.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So that would be 200,000 from capital and 200,000 from the Board of Ed, is that correct?
That was one option I had mentioned, but some other council members would rather look at not using the Board of Ed 400,000 and just trying to get through some capital reductions to get us there.
But if we only took 200,000 rather than the 400,000, they're still going to have a savings in the Board of Ed. But they're
It's
concerned
not
that
a
the 400
savings. Stop saying that.
Be nice, everybody. Be nice. Unexpended money from the current fiscal year.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So still 200,000 from the Board of Ed and 200,000 from capital to get to the 400,000, correct?
That could be an option, yes. We would have to look at our capital to see where you'd want to make those changes. All right, I'm getting a lot of silent looks at me right now, so maybe this is something that has to be pondered a little bit more, thought about. If you're interested in reducing capital or taking money from Board of Ed potential savings or taking more money out of our fund balance. There's three options out there. We could do a blend of all three. And I'm looking for some direction for what the preference is right now.
Kathy, Dave Underwood. One
Dave.
from capital, one from fund balance, one from the Board of Ed, and one from the town. That's my suggestion, 400,000.
Dave, can you say, I'm sorry, I was trying to write those down. Could you repeat that again to me, please, Dave?
Sure, saying take 100,000 from the Board of Ed, 100,000 from the town, municipal, one from fund balance, and the other one from capital. Divided up four ways.
And when you talk about the town and the Board of Ed, are you talking about reducing their operating budgets by $100,000 each?
You know, Kathy, I got to believe that there's going to be a savings. We've closed down all the schools. We have a savings on the municipal side. The library's closed. The senior center is closed. I mean, I'm not a believer. We didn't save something that we could apply towards this budget. So one, and one. Take 100,000 from each area. I don't think it would strain any of us to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other ideas how to get there?
Kathy, I was going to suggest that there was several line items that the council had not approved as far as the budget is concerned. I think the police budget was one. I know that capital was another. I believe health insurance was another. If you want to take, them one at a time and at least settle on where you want to end up, maybe there's a couple of those you can at least take off the table so that we narrow down the number of decisions that need to be made at the end.
Okay, I think that's probably prudent. Maybe, I know that the library was one of them and the police department was another, and it's a relatively short list. If we could have that list created so that we could only go back and look at those items to get that out of the way, that might expedite some of this stuff.
Rob, you want to start? You have the ones that still have to be done, right?
Yes, it's Sorry
Do
if my
one at a
screen
time.
goes away.
Do them one at a time.
Yep. So the police budget still is not approved, and to date, we have added 32,000 for the halftime police officer. So from the books that you have, the bottom line total is now 4,615,457, an increase of 104,928 or 2.33%.
So if you want to include the additional halftime officer in the budget, that would be the number that you approve or consider approving.
That's correct.
Thanks, Rob. So going forward, just talking to my fellow council members, as we go through these departments that Rob is reading off to us, are you ready to approve those outstanding items tonight as he goes through them with us? We've already gotten the police department. Are you ready to make motions to approve these, or do you need more time?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Rosemary.
Yes, yeah, I think we can go through them and approve the ones that we approve.
I think it's going to save some time and get some work done. If that is the case with everybody else, and I'm just going to go under that assumption, can somebody make a motion to approve the police department? I don't have the department number. Rob, do you have that number? Or can we
Yes,
just,
it's Department 201.
may I have somebody make a motion to approve Department 201 in the amount of $4,615,457?
So moved.
Second.
A motion in a second. Is there any further discussion on this department?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, this is Christopher Wazorko, and that does include half of a police officer position.
That's correct. I think Rob added
Okay.
in there. Is that right, Rob?
Yes, this is Rob Buden. Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Next one, Rob.
Yes, the next one is Department 820, which is employee benefits. And this is where we had a reduction in the health insurance based on the latest information. I will say a reduction, but it's still an increase in the line item, as we're looking at a 3.5% increase based on our numbers that Robert gave you, versus the 7% increase we originally gave you in the proposed budget from the town manager. So the bottom line number for this department in total is $3,864,266, an increase of $167,602, or 4.53%.
And just so we're clear, that reduces the original line item by $62,635, right, Rob?
That is correct.
I would point out that, a question came up yesterday as far as the state partnership plan is concerned. I did talk to some other towns that are involved with the partnership plan. Not surprisingly, people are unsure and unclear of what's going to happen. For example, East Hampton is still got budgeted 3.5%. They haven't finalized their budget. Ledyard is at 4.5%. They're in the partnership plan. They're budgeting 4.5%. Down in New Haven, which is in a little different county than us, North Branford is at 5.5%, but they're getting a slight adjustment just because of where they're located. In talking to Tim Hasselman, who's from Lockton, our consultant, he indicated that he thinks the impact of COVID-19 could be somewhere between 1% and 2% above what the normal increase would have been, although we haven't heard anything from the state yet. One of the positions you could take, at least as far as this evening is concerned, if you choose to, is we may hear before, or by the time you set the mill rate, what the final numbers are going to be with regards to health insurance. And, perhaps go forward with a 3.5% today. And then as we hear more, you would have to make an adjustment, perhaps after even the public hearing, depending upon if there's any kind of major change. If it's a small change, if it's less than $50,000, I think we can, roll a dice. But if it's significant, then you might want to consider, make an adjustment at the end before you set the mill rate. So if you want to consider 3.5% tonight, and subject to, an update if it happens before, we finalize the budget.
Okay, thank you for that information. I personally believe we should go with the number that Rob gave us at this point in time. And of course, we understand there's flexibility, and maybe this mill rate is going to have to be adjusted somewhere down the way. But at this point, I would suggest that we approve the budget as Rob has given us that. So I'm asking for a motion to Department 820 employee benefits in the amount of $3,864,266.
Madam Chair,
moved. Christopher Wazorko.
second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you again. Okay, next, Rob.
Okay, this is Rob Buter. The next department that is not approved is Department 840, which essentially is the interfund transfers out. The one number, well, there's several numbers. The one department that was not approved that relates to this department is the library fund. The library fund contribution from the general fund that's in this Department 840 is $649,951. That budget, that dollar amount is a contribution or revenue source to the library fund 8100. The other items in this line items within this budget that aren't approved are the capital. So both the town and Board of Ed capital line items, which currently, based on Robert's recommendation for tonight, are $700,000 in total. The bottom line for this department, if approved at those levels, would be $1,465,613, a decrease of $96,000 or 6.15%.
I think we should take them one at a time, the library and then the, capital separate. I know with the library, we had the $10,000 savings in electricity that could be applied, so it would reduce our contribution to the Plainville Library by $10,000. I know we've held it at a certain level for a lot of years, the same number. They've used the difference, from their, from their investments on their, on their accounts, and also they've also used some of their own fund balance. But we did recognize that we anticipate a savings in their operating budget by $10,000. And the question is, do you want to reflect it in the contribution that we make to them, or reflect it in them perhaps taking less out of their own fund balance?
Did you go mute?
Everybody get that?
I didn't hear anything that Robert said. Can anybody else hear me, or is there a problem on my end?
I can hear you.
I heard everything. I heard you and the town manager.
Kathy, you're muted right now.
Kathy, can you hear me? This is Kevin.
She cannot hear you. Kevin, I can call her if you like, or I can give you her phone number.
I'm having some problems hearing everybody.
We hear you now.
Can you hear me now, Kathy?
Kathy, can you hear us right now?
Kathy?
I guess not. Let me see if I can get into the computer.
You want me to call her and tell her to log out and log back in?
Yes. Yes, I would.
All right, I'm going to tell her to log out and log back in.
I can hear anything. I can hear you. Hopefully it'll stay.
Okay.
You can hear us now? Okay, she can hear us now. So the question becomes, what do you want to do with the library budget? Do you want to keep it at the same level? Do you want to decrease it by $10,000?
Madam Chair,
Anybody have any thoughts on the library?
Madam Chair. I would recommend decreasing by $10,000.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else
Madam-
support that?
Well, Madam Chair, just a quick question. We're talking about the operating account and not the contribution the town makes to the library.
No, we're talking about the contribution that's made to the library.
Yeah, I could support that.
Okay, so the library fund right now, Rob, and I hope I heard him correctly, was $648,951. Is that right?
He stepped out for a minute. I can check my budget.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, just to confirm, I think our rationale for this was the electricity, the cost of the electricity, correct?
I believe I remember that being the case.
Right, yeah, I have my book here and I think I have notes in it, but
Correct.
okay.
Rob? Rob, you there?
Yes,
What was the contribution amount that we were making to the library?
$649,951.
So if we were to decrease it by $10,000, it'd be $639,941.
That is correct.
Okay, so that would be the motion if you want to decrease it by 10,000.
Can I have a motion to decrease the library fund to the amount of $639,951?
So moved. I thought it was 941.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, 940.
639,951.
I was wrong.
51, sorry, I was wrong. So moved. 639,951 for the library.
It's these headphones I'm using.
Second,
I
the next
motion a
Christopher
second.
Wazorko.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the library? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Thank
Okay,
you. for that.
I think that leaves us, Rob, just the capital at this point in time, or is there any other line item?
Just the capital within this budget.
So we're at 700,000 right now instead of 800,000. If you like, we can, we can discuss that on Thursday, or we can continue the discussion right now.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to clarify my comments from before because I think there might be some confusion regarding the capital budget. I wasn't saying I want to start eliminating line items from the capital budget. What I was responding to was when the discussion about using fund balance to balance his budget down to a 0 mil increase. What I was speaking about was if we were going to use fund balance, I think we should be using it to fund one-time costs, not operating costs. I wasn't looking to eliminate capital improvement funds. What I was saying is if we want to use fund balance, one-time money to pay costs to get this to a 0, we should be looking at spending it in the capital, on the capital budget. So I'm not looking for a reduction to the capital budget at this point. All I'm advocating for is if the council agrees that we should use some percentage of $400,000, whether it be 50,000 or all 400,000 from the undesignated fund balance to help balance this budget, I think we should be spending it in the capital projects, not into the operating cost. Is that clear? Just everyone follow me on that?
I am, but I'm thinking I need a little bit more help here because if we, initially our capital support from fund balance was $900,000 from fund balance, correct, Robert?
Rob, was it 800,000 or 900,000?
This is Rob Buter. No, it was 800,000 originally.
Okay, but our capital is at like 2.1 million, correct, Robert?
Oh, you mean the overall contribution from the general fund to, okay.
Yes, that's what I mean. I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's exactly what I mean, because we are drawing down $900,000 to fund the capital, correct?
No. How much fund balance? What page is it on, Rob? What page number are we talking for capital?
We're looking at J5.
Okay.
Is that it? J5, special funds? What's the reserve fund?
Give us 1 second.
Yeah, I know H9 is the capital, or H8 and H9 are, I believe, the capital funds.
This is this is Rob Buter. The general fund contribution, unassigned fund balance was $900,000. We were also going to use 200,000 of debt management funds.
And 800,000 from the general fund. Does that make up those are the three numbers?
That's correct.
Okay. So just to put in perspective what Jesse was saying, at least I believe what he was saying, is if we reduce the general fund contribution from 800, whatever number you want to use, let's say you wanted to, I've already suggested taking $100,000 out of there. But if you were to take another $200,000 out of there, and so it'd be 300,000, we'd go from 800,000 to 500,000, and we contribute 300,000 more from the undesignated fund balance to capital. So you keep the capital line item the same, but you would use the fund balance in capital as opposed to using the fund balance to offset operating costs. Is that correct, Jesse?
Yeah, I don't want to use fund balance to pay operating costs. It's one-time money. It should be used for one-time costs. When we use it to pay operating costs, well, the problem is those operating costs exist again in the following year, and that one-time money is gone. So my suggestion is when we were earlier, it came up in comments that perhaps we could look at using more of undesignated fund balance to try to get this to a 0. And all I was saying is if we're going to do that, I would be more inclined to support something that's going to use one-time money to pay one-time costs.
So I guess the issue becomes then that the council needs to decide how much money do you want to spend on capital and then decide how you want to fund it.
Exactly.
Well, Madam Chair,
Yes.
my comment then would be, I agree with everything in the discussion. I'm glad we're having this discussion. I'm not sure tonight would be the night to vote on this. I don't know if we want to continue discussing it, but I think at least this area, I'd like a couple days to kind of go through the numbers and make sure I understand what the financial impact and the reality impact of making some of these changes. So if unless everybody wants to vote tonight, then that's fine. But I would suggest we wait till Thursday for this.
I'm inclined to agree with you because right now the total gross town of Plainville and the Board of Education capital expenditure for next year is $1.9 million. we're not showing any change in our overall budget because the capital line has been kept to 800, although Robert reduced it to 700 recently. So what we're doing is we're increasing our capital expenditures, but we're supplementing it with money from our fund balance. So that is the difference, as far as I understand it. Am I on the right wavelength here, Robert and Rob?
Yes, I believe you are.
Okay.
Rob, you agree,
Yes.
Rob?
Yes, yes, the 1.9 million in total is correct. And the three sources of revenue are the general fund contribution through the mill rate, which currently sits at 700,000 if you take Robert's proposal from tonight. 200,000 of debt management funds. And at this point, another $1 million from undesignated fund balance.
You know, one of the things that I did propose this year was, you know, a new program as far as sidewalks are concerned, and maybe, you know, given the COVID-19 impact, that maybe we need to push that off a year. That's 200,000.
That is certainly one that I would look at. I would definitely look at that. And then I think there's some other adjustments that could be made that could help us out to get to where we need to be.
Yes, this is Rob Buterin again. I just want to point you to the budget book you have maybe in front of you, but pages J4 through J7 show every single line item within the capital from a gross expenditure standpoint that equals a 1.9 million in total. So those are the pages that you need to look at if you're looking for capital items from an individual basis.
Thanks. I was looking at the other page and H9, which also has capital.
It's all the same, yes, but it's yeah, they're the same.
Thanks, Rob.
Madam Chair, Dave Underwood here. I
Yes,
agree.
Dave.
I think Chris and yourself are 100% right. Let's put it off till Thursday. Give us some time to think and look through these capital projects.
Okay, I think that's, in my estimation, that's the last thing we have to do is take care of the capital and then the transfer that's going to occur because of the capital decision. Is that right? That's what we have left, in addition to setting the mill rate, but that's secondary to the work that we're doing now.
Yeah, and you still have what you want to do with the potential realized savings from the Board of Ed, whether you want to use any of it, all of it, or a part of it.
Robert,
Okay.
the 200,000 for sidewalk repair was a great idea. I mean, that would definitely help us out. $200,000.
Yeah, I think I appreciate their concern about the future risk, and everything we're doing tonight has a risk to it because there's too many variables. So if we can come up with a plan that the Board of Ed could help us out somewhat, not necessarily all of that money, and we could do some other things within our capital and some of the other expenditures, that may be the best plan going forward. So I hope people can come back with some ideas. Looking at our capital, of course, that's something we're going to have to look at. We haven't done any of that, and maybe we can get this finished up by tomorrow. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Well, we scheduled for Thursday. Do you want us to try to
Thursday.
do something tomorrow?
I misspoke. I meant Thursday. My mistake.
Okay. No, I'd like to get it sooner than later, but we didn't notice it. That's all.
Is everybody okay with reconvening Thursday? And I just would ask if you could come with some thinking about how you would like to, specific thoughts about how we can resolve some of these issues so that we're not trying to figure it out when we're just sitting down. There are some ideas. I asked the superintendent of schools to help us out as well, look at some capital items that maybe we could be putting into the mix here along with the towns and some of the other things we're trying to do.
I'll do that. I'll go through that with my team between now and Thursday, and I'll try to get any better numbers I can. I know we're talking with the bus company tomorrow, so if I have any further information I can share, I'll be happy to do so. And I appreciate you considering the variables and the things that we may have to account for instead of just trying to get any unexpended funds that might, may be potentially available. So thank you for your consideration.
Of course, we're all in it together.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Rob Buterin. If I may, with regards to the library fund, the only thing you approved was the revenue source from the general fund going into it. However, the library budget itself has not been approved yet.
Can we do that also tonight? I mean, that's just a matter of approving that,
Right,
that department as well, please. If you could give us that department and the number we need to approve.
sure. It's department number 520. The bottom line budget is $745,142. It's an increase of $11,895 or 1.62%.
And that does include the $10,000 savings in electricity.
That is correct.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
You have a motion?
Madam
Go ahead,
Chair,
Deb.
motion to fund Department 520 in the amount of $745,142.
I have a second.
Second, Christopher Wazorko.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So at this point, we're just
Kathy?
down to our capital, correct? And mill
Yeah.
rate?
Kathy,
And
I
Board
do-
of Ed.
Oh, yes, yes, of course.
Before we close, Carol Scoltetti could notice a tomorrow night's meeting if you wanted to try to get this tomorrow night. I mean, you know, we're only 1 hour short of 24 hours. I don't think that's, you know, a major issue. If you wanted to try to do it tomorrow night, if you want to wait till Thursday, that's fine as well. We're just saying, if you want to do this tomorrow night or reconvene, we can do it tomorrow night.
I can tell you, I'm not going anywhere. I don't know about anybody else, so I will offer that up to everybody. If you would prefer to get this done tomorrow night versus Thursday, if we could get it done, are you all in favor of that?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
That would, as long as everybody can get the information we're looking for by tomorrow night.
Well, you have the CIP line item. So the question becomes whether, you know, which line items do you feel you can reduce? Anybody who wants to talk to me tomorrow or run anything?
Yeah, or in reference to the superintendent taking a look at
Oh, yes.
his things also, that probably more where I was speaking to.
Yeah, I'll be able to do that. I'll be fine tomorrow night. It's my daughter's birthday and we have a little something planned, but I can work around that. So no problem.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, we're not going anywhere. We're not going to Chuck E. Cheese or anything. That'll be fine. That'd be good to get, you know, I could be ready by tomorrow with as much as I can.
We appreciate that. And in that case, we will put you on first. And then once we are all set, if that's the case, you can resume your party.
Whatever works well for you is fine. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Thursday does work better for me as well, to throw that out there.
Thursday is better rather than tomorrow?
Yes.
We can make it Thursday. We're not, you know.
I'm fine with Thursday. I don't, yeah.
Either
I
one
like
is
that
fine.
always.
Yeah. Either is fine with me.
Yeah, if Thursday doesn't work for Ty, if Wednesday doesn't work for Ty, you should probably make it Thursday.
Yeah.
I vote Thursday.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. Didn't mean to confuse it.
No problem. Let's just leave it for Thursday at 6:30 then.
Mhm.
And that gives everybody an extra day to do a little bit of thinking about the capital, about how we want to finally end up with this whole project. So let's say we'll just keep it at Thursday at 6:30 and we'll get back at it then.
Okay.
We'll see you then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.